My husband bought my ex a new car, then told me I was too needy to ask for anything, which is the kind of sentence you screenshot and send to your group chat with 10 skull emojis because words have stopped doing their basic job. And I'm Sienna, 31, a neonatal nurse who spends 12-hour nights tucking preemie hands the size of postage stamps back under warmed blankets and reminding terrified parents that breathing can be relearned. Something I'm apparently doing in my own life, one stubborn inhale at a time. The first sign that something was off wasn't the car. It was the way Liam started narrating generosity like a podcast he wanted a sponsorship for. I covered the bill for Sam at lunch, he'd say casual, like the city had named a street after him. I sent my sister money for that course, he'd add, checking my face for applause. I liked that he liked being useful. It's one of the things that made me fall for him. He's good at carrying boxes and tension, often at the same time. And he used to bring me flowers wrapped in butcher paper for no reason except I'd survived another shift, which to be fair is a reason. But somewhere in our third year of marriage his philanthropy turned performative, and the only person he didn't perform it for apparently was me. Here's how the car happened. It was a Tuesday, the kind that sticks to your skin. The unit was a symphony of alarms. Room 4's aita had flirted with the 60s and then climbed back up like a stubborn vine, and I'd had 3 cups of coffee that didn't touch the part of my brain that knew the baby in room 7 would not be going home ever, and I had to carry that news like a bucket that sloshed. I came home to our apartment smelling like a stranger had decided to live there. Lemon cleaner and that cold metal smell of dealership brochures. Liam stood up from the bar stools he assembled without instructions 2 years ago and did that grin that used to drive my knees to the carpet. Surprise, he said, and whatever place in my chest that keeps confetti on standby stirred. What is it? I asked, and I could hear happiness auditioning in my voice. I got Theo some wheels, he said, and I swear to you I thought he meant a desk chair. His Corolla finally died. Guy's been Ubering to interviews. I couldn't take it. Theo, I said, and my brain had to file retrieve Theo, my ex-college boyfriend. Proposed at 22 with a ring that turned my finger green because he bought it from a kiosk between a pretzel stand and a nail salon. We dated, we broke up, we re-broke up. We left each other notes on the fridge like peace treaties and finally separated for real when he decided music has to be my wife right now, and I told him to at least buy it dinner. We were friendly-ish, the way you are with someone who lived in your kitchen and then didn't. He and Liam became gym acquaintances because of course the Venn diagram of my life refuses to mind its own business. Wheels, I said carefully. A car, Liam said, delighted. A used Subaru, but it's clean. Reliable. I went down with him, negotiated the price like an adult, signed his cosigner because his credit is a shrug emoji right now. Keys are in his pocket, paperwork on the counter. He cried, babe. He looked at me like the crying had been a meteor shower he ordered. He cried, I repeated, slow, tasting the edges. You co-signed a loan for my ex. Our friend, he said, as if the pronoun could stitch me into something I hadn't been asked to wear. I couldn't just watch him drown. I looked at the paperwork and tried to locate the version of me that would slap his shoulder and say, "You're amazing," and let that be the end. That version had moved out of my body many Tuesdays ago, apparently. We've been talking about replacing my tires for 6 months, I said conversationally, like a scientist explaining gravity. The tread is a rumor. Your tires are fine, he said. Don't be dramatic. I laughed. It was not a pretty sound. I hydroplaned on the FDR last week. Your driving makes everything hydroplane, he said, and smiled like it was flirting. What about the savings? I asked. We had a plan for the down payment. For me to maybe have something newer than 2012 before winter. Plans change, he said. Emergencies happen. Theo needed a car, I said. And your wife. You have a car, he said. You have everything. There it was. Everything. The elastic word that means whatever I don't want to look at. I put my hands flat on the counter and felt the cool through my palms like a refusal. It feels intense that you can buy a car for my ex but not replace my bald tires. Buy, he said, defensive already. Cosign. Theo will pay it. I'm just backing him up. You're being, I don't know, needy. He said the word like it had a smell. Needy, I repeated, and there was a tiny me inside my chest, 12 years old, arranging her face so adults would like the furniture. Asking for safety is needy. You're asking all the time, he said, shrugging. New scrubs, new shoes, weekends away, a coffee machine with settings nobody uses. It's like, he laughed, not unkindly, which somehow made it worse, it's like you think money is unlimited if we put self-care in front of it. The fight that followed was one of those arguments where nobody shouts, which is fine on paper but in practice feels like slipping on ice for 40 minutes. He talked about loyalty and brotherhood and how Theo had been there when his dad died, even if that meant texting thumbs-up emojis. I talked about math and tread depth and how it is to come home from 2 deaths in one shift to a man who thinks generosity is a brand he can put on like cologne. We both said, I'm not being crazy, you're being crazy, without the word crazy because therapy taught us synonyms. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept flashing images of the babies whose parents stared at me like I was the weather, and then it cut to Theo at the DMV smiling with keys, and then to me in my car sliding near the merge like a ballerina who hadn't read the choreography. At 4 a.m., I put on a hoodie and went for a walk in the kind of rain that thinks it's mist. I ended up at the all-night bodega where the cat sleep supervised the kombucha. I bought a notebook with gold stars on the cover and wrote a list of sentences I wouldn't say out loud in our apartment because they can't survive the echo. It wasn't about the car. It was about being chosen. It was about him feeling like a hero everywhere but home. It was about the itch between my shoulder blades when a man tells me I'm needy because I said me. Theo texted me the next morning a photo of the Subaru. Can't thank you guys enough, will make you proud. I typed and deleted 14 replies ranging from take my name out of your mouth to drive safe, sincerely a woman who knows how quickly lungs give up. I sent congrats because values and boundaries can share a couch. When I got home that afternoon, Liam had done the thing he does when he knows he took a wrong turn, overcorrect. Flowers. Dinner plans. I booked your favorite sushi for Friday, he said. We'll get your tires tomorrow. I called the shop. It was a spur-of-the-moment thing with Theo. That required paperwork, I said, still flat. Be fair, he said, and I had to leave the room to keep from saying the kind of thing you can't say, the kind that gets italicized in divorces. Here's where I tell you I tried. That I bent without cracking. That we had a summit in the kitchen with grapes and apologies. We did. He rolled back the needy comment with the practiced ease of a man who has had to peel labels off fruit before company comes. I'm sorry I said that, he said, and I believed him because he looked like the version of him I married. Messy, soft around the eyes, trying. I shouldn't have called you names. I need to be needed. So do I said, and he nodded, and we both stared at the faucet like it had a moral. We got the tires. He paid. The man at the shop showed me the old ones, and even I, not a connoisseur of rubber circles, could see the grooves were imagination. We drove home in a kind of uneasy peace that felt like Scotch tape holding up a family portrait. 2 weeks later, the loan company called my number because my husband likes to put me as an emergency contact for anything that might eventually refuse to breathe. We're looking for Mr. Liam Geller, a woman said, neutral as a pressed shirt. Regarding the loan he co-signed. Payment hasn't been received. We've attempted to contact the primary, Theodore Kane. I hung up and called Liam. He didn't pick up. I called Theo. He answered on the second ring, breathless, like he'd been running from adulthood. Hey, he said, too bright. What's up? Pay the bill, I said. He paused. Oh. Yeah. I'm between things right now. Gigs are weird. Rent just. It's the first payment, I said. Technically the second, he said, as if technicality were a marinade that made irresponsibility tender. I'll get it to Liam. You'll get it to the loan company, I said. Today. He made a sound I used to think was charming. You're intense, he said, laughing. I hold babies together with my hands for a living, I said. I am very intense. We hung up. I sat at the kitchen table with my notebook and drew a small map, what Liam owes me. It wasn't money. It was narrative control. It was the right to say I don't like this and not have the conversation turn into who needs more. It was the right to not have my boundaries refereed by men who think a good deed with a selfie is better than boring, non-Instagrammable maintenance at home. That night, Liam came home with the thud of a man who thinks stumping is a sentence. "Theo's in a tight spot," he said. I spotted him. "It's fine." "How many spots can we afford?" I asked. "Before the whole painting is just blank." "Do you hear yourself?" he said, incredulous. "The guy is drowning." "You'd walk past." "I'd hand him a life jacket and tell him to kick," I said. "You're building him a boat with the wood from our floor." He rubbed his face, sat, looked small, then looked at me like I was a puzzle he wanted to finish. "Why does this make you feel less?" he asked. Me helping him. Because I was raised to be low maintenance to earn love. Because men have always loved how self-sufficient I am until the day they need me to need them in a way that makes them feel tall. Because when I finally ask for something, my voice still shakes with an old shame that isn't mine. "Because you called me needy," I said, and he flinched. "Because you made me competing with charity." We started therapy. Yes, the cliché that saves some marriages and reveals the expiration date on others. The therapist had the voice of a woman who keeps a kettle forever on the edge of boil. She asked why Liam's giving had a better press team than mine. She asked why my asking had to be branded panic. She asked Liam to list 3 ways I care for him that don't involve car parts. He listed 13, eyes wet, and I had to look at the corner of the rug to not cry in a way that would be mistaken for surrender. She asked me to say "I need" out loud in her office. I did. It tasted like metal the first time and like bread the third. For a while we got better. He stopped texting the group chat every time he made a donation. He started forwarding me the emails from HR about the hospital's employee benefits because in his head my job was a vocation and in mine it was also a paycheck. We went to bed with our feet touching like a secret handshake. Then Theo missed another payment. The bank sent a letter. Thick paper. It looked like a wedding invite for debt. I put it on the table. Liam stared at it a long time. "This is a setback," he said. "I'll cover it until he's back on his feet." His auditioning for a tour. His auditioning for a relapse of the part of your personality that likes to be the hero, I said. He snapped. "I'm not allowed to be generous anymore? Is that where we're at? I am somehow a bad guy because I don't measure every act with a calculator." "You measure them with a camera," I said, and that was the first time his face truly changed, like I'd taken a hammer to an antique he loved. He left. He slept at his friend's. He came back with apologies like bouquets, wild and large, smelling like grocery store floral refrigerator air. "Why him?" I asked finally, one night calm, folded into our couch like a person with options. "Why Theo? Not just because he's my ex. What is it?" He stared at his hands. "He reminds me of me if no one had looked out for me," he said. "When my dad died, I wanted to drown. People threw me ropes. I like being the person who throws ropes." "I like that you like it," I said. "I want to like it up close. Not as a spectator watching the ropes tangling our feet." There was a party at my friend Raven's that weekend and I went alone because I needed to remember how my name sounds without his next to it. I laughed so hard my ribs thought they were at a gym. I danced like someone with no stage. I told the story to my friends and they made the face friends make when they are restraining themselves from going to your husband's job and giving him a vocabulary lesson. Raven said, "Ask him what he'd do if you bought your ex a car," and we all laughed until we stopped because none of us wanted to live in that parallel universe. When I got home at midnight, my building smelled like someone had burned sugar. Liam was on the couch with his head in his hands. "I told him we can't," he said without preamble. "I told Theo we can't carry him anymore. He called me a traitor. He said you changed me." I said good. He said bad words. I blocked him. He looked up, eyes red. "I should have done it when you said we were giving him our floorboards. I didn't want to be the guy who gives up on people." He swallowed. I don't want to be the guy who gives up on us either. I didn't have a neat speech. I had a weather report. We're in a storm, I said. Your umbrella has holes. My shoes are soaked. We can wait it out or we can move. He laughed, a small, desperate sound. Where? He asked. Under truth, I said. It wasn't linear. It never is. He backslid into savior mode twice and we argued in daylight and then walked around the block holding hands like a ceasefire. I asked for things on purpose every week, not to test him but to rehabilitate the muscle in me that had atrophied. I need you to come to one night shift of my life, I said, and he did. Not inside the unit, no one comes in, but outside at 3 a.m. with a thermos and a folding chair and a book he pretended to read while I walked out at breaks and told him about the baby who turned a corner and the baby whose parents didn't. He listened and did not say needy when my voice cracked on the part about lungs. My parents came to town and we told them the story without making each other the villain. My mother nodded like someone finally opened a window. My father made a joke about Subarus that I won't repeat because I'm trying to raise the level of discourse in my house. Theo went on tour with a band for 6 weeks and then texted me from a new number to ask for a character reference. I did not answer because boundaries are not transportable. Liam joined a mentorship program that pairs men with teenagers who need rides to apprenticeships that will pay them money instead of claps. He gets to throw ropes now with backstops built in, accountability included. He loves it. He comes home with stories that smell like sawdust and hope, and I bake cookies for boys who are learning to show up for something besides an emergency. This winter, when the first snow threatened, he said unprompted, "We should get you snow tires," and then, "and a remote start," and I swear I almost kissed the invoice. I said thank you like I meant it because I did. I also said, I need you to say out loud that my asking is not a moral flaw, and he did, and my spine popped like a yoga pose. We paid off the remainder of the co-signed loan with an angry adulting lump sum because the bank doesn't care about teachable moments. We did the math and I didn't combust. We rebuilt the savings we'd planned together for my future car, and when I test drove a sensible, safe hybrid that sighed like a responsible aunt, I cried in the driver's seat, a ridiculous out-of-body joy because it felt like writing something on my own bones. I'm Sienna, 31. I go to work at night and count tiny ribs and teach parents how to cup their palms like small cathedrals, and I come home and ask for what I need and listen when the man I married says he needs to matter without making me invisible. We are learning a language that doesn't confuse rescue with love. If you need me, I'll be in the parking lot showing off my tires to anyone who will look, and then inside my kitchen, where the counters are cool and the tea is strong, writing lists that start with I need and end with thank you and have an entire middle full of verbs that sound like both of us choosing each other on purpose, even on Tuesdays that feel like a bodega cat's opinion of kombucha. Sometimes I still think about the first night, how my mouth filled with metal at the word needy, how small I felt in my own apartment. When I do, I touch the key fob in my pocket like a talisman, not because it opens a car but because it opens something else. The reminder that asking is not a crime, that generosity without intimacy is PR, that marriages aren't scored by whose name is on the receipt but by whether both people can say me without the room gaslighting the sound out of their throats. And when a baby takes a breath without the ventilator for the first time on my shift, sometimes I lean my head against the isolette and whisper, "Look at you," and I swear the words bounce back toward me like little boomerangs all the way home.